And then we did it, and it was just, I guess, the most crazy, powerful experience I ever had. Because love is already there, and then it makes it even more. And you're
Yeah.
like, I cannot contain all this feeling. Like, it's so much. Like, I remember feeling like I would go crazy. Like, I'm going crazy. This is
Yeah.
so powerful.
Welcome to TripTease, the Psychedelic Confession Chamber. This is a podcast dedicated to trip reports, stories, and discussions about mind expanding experiences. All right. So, welcome to the first ever international TripTease. It's a podcast I've been doing for over 2 years. So, basically, this is an idea that my friend Uri came up with, and he used to do the podcast with me on a regular basis, and now you're gonna see him sometimes. He had this idea to record people tell us three different stories about three different big trips or big like psychedelic experiences they had in their life, and that's actually a very fun idea for me, and it has been fun. I recorded about 30 episodes with different people, and there's always amazing stories. We have been doing it in Hebrew so far. I'm from Israel, and my main language is Hebrew. And I decided to go international with it. So I want to share this interesting and fun experience. Also fun, also very can go very deep because psychedelics bring up a lot of different subjects that are very fascinating to me. Yeah, so we'll dive into it immediately after we introduce our first guest, Raya.
Hello.
Yeah, thanks for being so brave and coming up here for this kind of first ever video recorded for international crowd trip report. I really appreciated that you are okay with coming here and exposing yourself and
Yes.
sharing your stories. So thanks a lot.
Yes, my pleasure.
Tell us a bit about yourselves, whatever you want to share. I'm also just
Mm.
getting to know her. We just met now, so I'd love to learn more.
Yeah. Well, I started with psychedelics when I was 16.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was always very curious about it. I feel like since a very young age, I had this fascination with consciousness, with existential questions, and just knowing that there's a substance I can take that will expand my mind, that will make me see things differently, made me super curious. I
Yeah.
don't feel like I had much fear, just a lot of curiosity. Like I wanted to try
Yeah.
anything.
I can identify with the curiosity, but I always did have fear when it comes to
Fear was
psychedelics.
there, I mean, but it wasn't a main thing.
But yeah, I can really
Yeah.
identify with what you say, that it's fascinating the idea that you can make your normal way of thinking and behaving change just like that. It's, yeah,
Yes.
quite amazing.
Yeah, we live in a certain, I guess, dimension, reality. We see things since a young age at a very certain way. So just the thought, the idea that there is something more, that I can see things differently, that I can hear more sounds, that I can experience myself and the world in a different way, made me so excited and so
Yes.
curious always.
Nice.
And it's interesting because I feel like we all have a very natural fascination and attraction to something. We're created differently. So I guess existence, nature, God, however we want to call this higher intelligence that we're it and a part of, made us this way and different so we can each go in our own path. Because I have
Yeah.
many friends who are super afraid that would never try it. Just the thought of diving deep scares them.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
makes them feel it's a lot about control.
Mm-hmm.
I think
For
many
sure.
people are
Yeah.
with control.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah. I think nowadays people are, and I can talk for myself, like especially very independent, living their own lives and making all of their own decisions. Um, so we're kind of forced a bit into being control freaks because it's always our choice to make, and if we make the wrong choice, we're gonna suffer the consequence, and da da da. And this is,
Yeah.
yeah. And maybe I don't know how it was in the past when there was less like human rights and liberties and all of that, but maybe having less of these liberties, it means like you're less, you don't try to control your life as much because things are more deterministic as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's a lot about understanding this deep realization that we don't really have control, you
Hmm.
know? So because we know deep down that we don't have control, we try to control whatever we can to get this sense of safety, of security, which is an illusion, but still
Yeah, it's a necessary
it's a
illusion,
necessary illusion, I
but yeah.
guess. Yeah. Yeah. I think the main thing is trust. And I think it's something I gained through psychedelics. Um, Trust and belief. Belief in something that is bigger, higher, wider, deeper than me. Because I grew up in a very unreligious, unspiritual family and was very anti everything that was, as many people here, I
Hmm.
guess.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and it made me a believer. I think psychedelics, it's not even a fact of believing, it's like this deep knowing because you feel it, you experience
Yeah.
it.
I did the other way in life. I grew up very religious,
Oh,
and now
really?
I'm, for years, many years, or like 15 years maybe already. I'm like very like agnostic,
Mm-hmm.
atheistic agnostic. But psychedelics uh, also gave me this experience that you are talking about. Just for me, it was just like something maybe, I don't know, less. I don't think it's very different, but is the feeling, is knowing that I'm just a little part of something big, and it doesn't have to be an entity or a force or whatever. It's just a fact, even a
Yeah.
scientific fact. I'm a small part of something very massive, and I can feel sometimes connected to it, and sometimes less, and that's like the lesson for me that psychedelics brought me to be somehow more spiritual in my way, like,
Yeah. They melt away all of our programming, all of our structures, our identity, so much weight that society puts
Mm,
on us that we carry, and it's struggling, it's suffocating us.
yeah,
So I feel like many people are desperate for this release and freedom and something more just real. Yeah, more
yeah,
natural that connects to nature, to each other, to our hearts,
yeah.
rather than
To
all
parts of us
this.
that are like sometimes hidden. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, psychedelics are definitely a blessing in that way, that they can help people do these things, actually, like tap into different parts of their emotional or cognitive parts. And
I feel like spirituality, like psychedelics, give this direct connection that I
yeah.
never had because it's all intermediated through religion. It's
Hmm.
like they say we we talk to God or we know the truth and you will come to us. And psychedelics gives us this direct connection that we always have for sure. We don't need psychedelics for it, but
Yeah,
we're so busy and so full
yeah,
of
yeah,
ideas and things that it makes us clean it all away and just feel it, know
yeah,
it.
yeah. It
So
definitely allows some freedom, yeah, emotional and thought and creative, and like, yeah, other expressions, like of us, of our humanity and other stuff. So it definitely allows them to be more present, more active. Yeah,
yeah.
cool. Okay, maybe just for like, the officialities, will just tell us a bit more about yourself, a bit more biographic, but also
Yeah,
whatever
I
you want to
escaped that
share.
subject
Somehow,
elegantly.
yeah, very nicely. You got us into a whole talk about, yeah.
Yeah, it's always a question of like introduce yourself. There's so many things.
Right, yeah,
Um,
just pick
yeah,
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
just in general. So yeah, I've been traveling the world for I guess 8 or 9 years. And now I travel sort of through Israel
A bit more
and
locally.
a bit more
Yeah.
locally, yeah. And I studied psychology, and now I'm into yoga and all kinds of therapies. So that's always my fascination, always with mind, with body, with all this connection.
Okay, so you didn't answer any biographical detail, but okay.
Why? I did a little bit.
Yeah, you said right. Oh, yeah, you
I
said a
did.
bit. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You traveled the world for the last 8 years. You deal with yoga. Okay, yeah, it was an interesting introduction. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll allow it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
approved.
So I think we can move on now to the first story.
Yeah, so I don't think it will be like a specific story unless something comes up. I can just, let's say, flow with my psychedelic biography
All right.
in a
Yeah.
sense. So, yeah, when I was 16, I started with acid,
Mm-hmm.
LSD, in trance parties, in raves, I guess. And that was already mind blowing to hear the music, to dance, to feel the music in my body. But at that time, I also had many times, not many times,
And that
but a
was when
few,
you were like around 16, like you said.
16,
Yeah.
17, 18, all
Right.
that time, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a few times like a social anxiety kind of thing, like things came up during the trip and I was too young. I didn't know how to handle it. Back then there was no this safe shores or this kind of things.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating for me nowadays is that I kept going. Even though I had a few bad trips, as you
Yeah.
would call it,
Yeah.
I still had this
Yeah.
fascination. I
You were
wanted to
determined.
experience, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what really, really, really um, attracted me and fascinated me back then was when I really got into a trance state, when I was one with the music. You know, like Osho says that the dancer disappears and only the dance remains. So just for hours dancing and I'm
Yeah.
not there. The story is not there, the identity, the body moves on its own and the music goes through you, which is an amazing experience.
Yes. Yes.
There's nothing like it really. It's wow.
Yeah.
It's an
Yeah.
amazing flow.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I think acid is like the one for that. Maybe
Mm.
sometimes people like mushrooms for that, but I think it's acid is the one for like dancing like that,
Yes.
and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you're
It's more
young.
electric. I don't know. You like
Yes.
feel the pulses like
Yes.
yeah.
And I feel like it also had this logistic kind of thing because it was very cheap. And you take one drop and you're flying for 12
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
You know, it's so
A very
easy.
efficient
Very
psychedelic
efficient. Yeah.
experience. Yeah, always has been. Yeah.
And the first time where I experienced something different was in my first India. And I took
Your first
LSD.
India, and just explain it for maybe people that are not so yeah, in the culture.
Well, I went to India many times. So that was
Okay.
the first time when I was in India, when I was 22, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
went for the first time during my bachelor's in psychology. And that was the first time where I tried psychedelics just in nature, in these beautiful surroundings, and not in a party. And that's where I think things kind of changed for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I really felt this, as we said earlier or later,
Right.
we
Yeah.
felt this. I felt this connection to nature, to existence, to everything alive. It was one of the most beautiful scenery, kind of magical places in the Himalaya mountains.
Yeah.
White
Yeah.
horses, like I really remember it, and this quietness. It was just the most profound experience. And that's where I was like, oh wow, I understand things differently now. Like a new dimension is open for me.
And in that time, you were still doing mainly acid when you were in India then, or already also
Acid,
mushrooms still there?
acid and ketamine.
Ketamine. Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, they sell it over the counter there.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. If
common.
you're addicted to ketamine, don't go to India and some places in Southeast Asia. If
Yeah,
you wanna, yeah,
it's so
it's
common,
hard to
so
stop.
cheap.
Yeah, yeah, I was never into it, but yeah, I met a lot of people that were enjoying it a lot in in India. Yeah,
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 it has this psychedelic, profound vibe to it.
yeah, yeah.
It
It could
has
be,
it.
but it's interesting. It's still like one of these drugs that is debatable if it's psychedelic or not. But I think it's because in specific way it is, and then in most way people use it, maybe it's not so much. And
Yeah.
yeah,
In that first India trip, I was after a breakup of a boyfriend I had for 4 years, and I went to India and I was like, okay, I'm single, I'm free, I'm doing whatever. And I met this guy in one of those India stories. He had this big bike and he was like, come with me to the villages and let's do MDMA.
yeah,
And I was in my mind, okay, I'm free, I'm going to do MDMA with him and I'm going to maybe be intimate with him and let's do it.
yeah.
And it's,
It's a good opportunity to like yeah check
yes,
like MDMA, cute
India,
guy,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
In my mind, I was like, I'm gonna do MDMA with him, I'm gonna flow, and let's see what happens. And then we took it, and I immediately was connected to my heart, and I felt I don't want to do anything with that guy, nothing.
hmm
And I listened to my heart,
yeah,
like it made me really connected to myself
yeah,
and made me not do what I thought I was gonna do, which
yeah,
is beautiful. So every time since then, like I feel it, it opens your heart and it connects you to your higher truth, not in a lying, delusional kind of way, but more in like a true essence kind of
yeah,
heartfelt way.
yeah. I think it really it almost can force you to pay more attention to your emotions sometimes. Quite like
Yeah.
it does that. Yeah. Yeah, and I think also that's interesting. Like when people think about MDMA or ecstasy as sex drugs or something, it's like not necessarily. Like it could enhance sex maybe in some way, but quite often it doesn't make people like horny or anything. It's just like you're more emotional, so then sometimes the sex could be more emotional, and that's great. That's awesome for like, but from my experience, it's for me, MDMA usually makes me go also inside and see what I want to do and where I want to be. And yeah, it could be like, usually it's like alone in a quiet place, laying down, breathing. This is what, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But if you're with somebody you love, like I would do it with my partner that I had, and we were the first time we did it, we were in this honeymoon phase, like super in love, super attracted as is.
yeah,
And then we did it, and it was just, I guess, the most crazy, powerful experience I ever had. Because love is already there, and then it makes it even more. And you're
yeah,
like, I cannot contain all this feeling. Like, it's so much. Like, I remember feeling like I would go crazy. Like, I'm going crazy. This is
yeah.
so powerful.
Yeah, that's what it does. It's like amplifies, enhances emotions, and I think other stuff that has to do with that layer of us in some way. Um, and yeah, also makes us way more patient, often patient and receptive, and like
Yeah.
yeah, just more a little bit more observant,
Mm-hmm.
like less relaxes maybe a bit the control side in the
Mm-hmm.
I have to do stuff side and all of that, and then like just feel what's going on,
Yes.
feel the other people, feel the nature, feel yourself, you know.
Yeah. Connect.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Connect to your emotions. We're mostly quite disconnected from them. We're so much in our mind and so much in our to do,
right.
whatever.
Yeah,
And then it just, yeah, everything melts away. Nothing
yeah,
matters except for our heart, which
yeah,
is beautiful.
yeah.
With mushrooms, I can get there as well, for sure, but in a more clean way, I guess. That's why I love mushrooms. They're my favorite.
Clean white, I think like mushrooms just have other layers of experience. They
Mm-hmm.
also can have this part, but also they have other layers.
For
That's how
sure.
I see it. Like
Yeah.
that MDMA could be more focused emotional because it doesn't have the other like cognitive and visual and like and crazy idea part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
yeah,
True.
so yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on, I need to just hold on, I need to I need to like do a what's like
A recap.
structure, yeah, recap, structure check what's going on here. So we talked about like two different periods in your life, still pretty younger, but like one when you were starting to experience the rave scene outdoors, also raves in Israel, we call them nature parties.
Oh, yeah.
It's very hippie usually, or not necessarily, but yeah, it's very psychedelic,
Or
very
very alcy.
colorful. Yeah, also could be yeah, but yeah, Alcin is yeah. If you catch our drift, you understand maybe yeah what we mean. A lot of people try psychedelics for the first times or have like an intense time of trying psychedelics in these raves, nature party raves, is because it's very colorful. It's in usually outdoor, usually in a isolated location. It's not necessarily the
Freedom.
best setting, but it is this kind of setting that makes people like it's a very integral part of the psychedelic scene here in Israel.
Yeah.
So if in back in the whenever like most people used to like drop their first acid in Grateful Dead concerts, like
Yeah.
for Israelis since the 90s, it's definitely yeah, psychedelic trance nature parties.
Yeah.
So you did that, and you had like I guess from what you told me, the thing that you remember is like experiencing your presence, but in a very amorphic form, creative, musical movement. You kind
Yeah.
of felt like how you can expand outside of your consciousness to be this
Yeah.
dancing spirit or something.
Yeah.
There's anything else you remember from that that you want to like that symbolizes or anecdotes from that time?
I feel all those experiences were very external. It took me years to come to a more internal, aware, conscious experiences. Everything was very out there and very, yeah, not the most connected, not the most aware. It really changed my life and shifted everything for sure. I feel like it's a big part of why I went to study psychology. And after, when I went to study yoga, it was after an ayahuasca um, journey, ceremony. So it definitely always shifted my reality and put a direction to it,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
But that time was like a crazy, fun time.
Yeah. Playful.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
yeah, playful. Sometimes really bad trips. Like my worst trips were, I guess, that time when I
And why is
was
that? Because
mostly either because I wasn't drinking or eating enough, so I was dehydrated or too much in the sun. Like I wasn't aware of all those things, you know. Like you go to a party, you drop acid, and you
yeah,
just survive somehow.
Yeah, yeah.
You're not like,
Yeah, you're
okay, I'll do
not as
that.
responsible as you,
No,
yeah, as you grow to
no,
be in the, yeah.
no.
Yeah, yeah.
Really.
Yeah, I never started until I was like 23, 24. So I kind
Mm,
of skipped that very,
yeah.
the really,
Just
uh,
imagine yourself a teenager and add acid to it.
yeah,
That's
yeah, it's crazy. Yeah,
can
yeah.
get to some. Um, yeah, but later I started with a more natural kind of way, more doing ceremonies, more going to that hippie conscious kind of thing. I traveled to Peru and I did a few San Pedro ceremonies there and ayahuasca and mushrooms in all kinds of countries. So that was more when I did my first like high dose mushroom trip, like hero's dose properly with eyes closed in a dark room, in a quiet room. That was a very big experience in my life for sure.
You remember the first time you did it?
Yeah, I remember the first time I did it. I got really into that whole time of listening to Terence McKenna and
Yeah.
going into, listening to Ramdas and going into all the history and culture and everything. And I was like, okay, I want to do it. I want to try it. Because, yeah, until then it was only with people and nature and all those kinds of things. And I really wanted to dive deep. So I did that. And that was really crazy. Like, I could see beings that I don't know till this day who and what they are, but I definitely wasn't alone, which was, I was alone, but I wasn't
But
alone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now I know that when I cross this dimension, there is this sound, which is the sound of DMT or mushrooms or any psychedelic or any experience that you cross the threshold, then you have this sound which is like a dij, like an om, like a oh. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah. I kind of, yeah. But I think it's, yeah, for some people it's more of a high pitch whistle or something like that. Yeah, but yeah, there is a, or,
Yeah. It was super powerful and it made me remember when I was in Australia. I think it was 2 years ago. I decided to do another Heroes Dose after a while that I haven't done this thing. And I became pretty, let's say, confident about
okay.
myself and psychedelics. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do a Heroes Dose. And I took it in my room in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crazy because I met a friend there who taught me how to pick mushrooms, how to find them.
Ah,
Because
yeah,
they
they have them a
grow,
lot there.
oh
Yeah,
my God, it's like paradise. I was excited that they just grow naturally there.
yeah.
And so when I discovered it, I'm like, I need to find somebody that will teach me how to pick them. So I met this guy and he taught me, he's like this mushroom master and they just grow everywhere in Melbourne, like parks and playgrounds, and it's crazy, just
Yeah.
in the city. And when I went with him, it was fine, and then I went alone, and there's so many kinds of mushrooms, and some of them they're poisonous. And I was looking, and I was lost, and I didn't
Oh
know what to
shit.
do. But I had some,
Fuck.
yeah, that can be
Yeah, that's
dangerous.
yeah. If this happens to you, don't eat the mushrooms
No,
if
no,
you're not sure. Yeah,
they say when in doubt, leave it out.
exactly.
Definitely.
Especially with mushrooms
For sure, for
and
sure.
any kind of
Yeah, yeah.
drugs. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I didn't pick any, but I had some that he gave me. So I decided to do a hero's dose in my room, and I did it, and it was so strong because they're the second most potent mushrooms in the world, the subs, and they were like crazy strong, like one of the most powerful experience I ever felt. And I remember this feeling like I'm no hero. I'm no hero. Like it
Mm.
made me so humble because I came to it
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm gonna do a hero's dose, no worries. Like
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
it. And then just boom, like I felt there, like be humble, like
Yeah, I
come
think
to your
psychedelics don't like, they like humbleness. You
yeah
need to be not on your toes, but somehow, yeah, you
on your
can't be,
knees,
yeah, you can't be like too, what's the word?
arrogant or
Arrogant
something.
or, ah, fuck, I lost the word. But yeah, you can't be like too confident. Like for me, usually I won't take psychedelics if I didn't plan to take psychedelics. But
Mm,
even when I plan to take psychedelics, I still have this like kind of excitement and doubt and fear until I actually take it. And then when like as much as when they come, usually when it starts influencing me, then the excitement like becomes bigger, and it's very nice.
mm,
But there is something there that I'm not just like, yeah, willy nilly, like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, no,
yeah.
yes, no, maybe I'm ready, I'm not ready. You need to be always cautious, not
Mm-hmm.
too much, not to stress yourself, but to be kind of cautious about doing psychedelics. And if you're not sure you want to do it, don't do it. That's for sure.
For
That's,
sure.
yeah.
For sure. It's a calling, it's a feeling kind of thing. And yeah, so they made me really humble, that experience. And I was talking to them. Like it was one of the most powerful bonding experience between me and these beings. Whoever still didn't see Fantastic Fungi, I highly recommend
Yeah,
this movie.
it's a very nice film.
And these beings, they're crazy. It's not an animal and it's not a plant. It's this whole kingdom, and they're conscious, they're intelligent, they're I really love them. We have a special connection. And this experience really, I felt like a bonding experience. Like I really felt like it's always given me this insight into where I was out of alignment, where I was into my ego, into just ideas, where I was far away from my heart. It always
Mm-hmm.
makes me think of my connections, my relationships. Um, yeah, always brings me back to my center. It's like I meet my teacher, my guru, my higher self, and it shows me. It really shows
Mm.
me when I do it alone by myself. And the crazy thing about that specific experience is that after it ended the next day, or the same day, I think the next day, I went to the same place where I was 2 days before, and I knew the mushrooms. I just knew. It was
Yeah.
insane. Like the mushroom was inside of me, and I went to the same park and I saw all the different types of mushrooms, and I looked and I just knew 100% where are the magic ones.
Yeah.
I picked and I had this huge bag, and just to make sure I did a spore print, a spore print
I think that you tap on, like you kind of let the cap drop its spores
on a
on a
piece of
paper.
paper,
Yeah,
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 and you
yeah,
see the color. Just really beautiful. I
yeah.
discovered it only then that each mushroom has its own spore print when it's all thin. So just to make sure I did the spore print test. So it was them for sure, and I took them after. So it was those mushrooms. But how crazy! Like 2 days before, I didn't know. Like I was
Yeah,
lost. I was looking. I didn't know who they were, and then I just knew, just knew. Like they told me.
nice.
So yeah, I love it. I love it.
Nice.
I love it.
So
Yeah,
when was the last time you did like a big dose of mushrooms like that, in that way?
like a proper hero's dose, a huge dose. That was the last time.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really, really, really powerful. It made me like, okay, but I did recently a few times a big dose, but not 5 grams, like a gram
Yeah. Yeah,
plus.
it's not a normal, it's not a
No,
usual thing. Yeah.
no, it's a complete out of body experience. Like in that experience, I wasn't sure if I'm alive or dead. Like I needed to
Wow.
surrender to being dead. I wasn't sure if I'm breathing or not. Did I pass out in alone in a locked room? Like it's not something I recommend to people who are
Yeah.
not very, very secure in themselves and in their surroundings, and maybe tell somebody,
Yeah, yeah, and
maybe
you
have
can
a
have
trip
someone. Yeah,
sitter.
you can have someone look after you. For sure, it's recommended in in this situation.
Although it's
Not if in
different.
an active way necessarily. Could be just someone around
Yeah.
because yeah, you're not necessarily very communicative most of the
Mm.
time. But also, I think when you come down from the peaks, it's also nice to see a friendly face and maybe
Mm-hmm.
start talking a bit. Like I had a friend do it in his bedroom while I was chilling in the living room and just checking on him every now and then. And then after that, he came down and we had a lot of laughs. We talked. We went to the beach. So it was nice for him to land in that way from
Mm.
the whatever intense like inside inner experience he had.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to have someone you really trust, you really feel
Yeah,
comfortable with, you really like someone who can understand the
yeah,
vibe that you're in, because it's a really big thing. It's a really big
yeah,
experience. So, yeah. Bless you. It has
yeah.
to be somebody
Yeah, you can
really.
think about it. They call it trip sitter for a reason. It's like if you're not gonna let someone you don't really trust and that ideally knows your kids and knows how to deal with their issues or whatever and all of that, you're not gonna leave your kid alone with them. So imagine you're now that kid and
Exactly.
you need someone that could really get you or just like contain you or just
Yeah.
make sure your space is safe so you experience whatever you experience, someone that has this way of being also attentive and
Yeah.
yeah and caring, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now I think it's a editing nightmare, but I'm gonna see what I can do about it.
Oh no.
No, I'm joking. So it's gonna be fine. So I think to close it all is how the integration, and you want to explain a bit how you connected with it, how you
Yeah.
what you think about what it is.
Yeah, I feel like I experienced many of the cultures around psychedelics, let's say in Peru or in all kinds of hippie communities, places, festivals, and you can see people who, will be like, oh, I sat with tribes in Brazil and Peru and I did 100 ayahuasca ceremonies and I did 1,000 acid trips. But you see that they're fully in their whatever patterns and ego and those
Yeah,
kinds of things. Or people who still have tons of issues and they do another ceremony and another ceremony and another
yeah,
ceremony. And the thing is integration. Like you can have a peak experience, you can have all the insights of in the world. You can have this experience and feel this unity and connection and understand things. But then you drop back into yourself, into your identity, into your story, into your baggage, into everything, which is the same with Vipassana or all kinds of retreats or going to a ceremony, to an ashram, to all those kinds of things. Because life is day to day, minute to minute, in all kinds of conversations we have, experiences, into all those kinds of things. So integration is key. And I
yeah,
feel like that's why after I did one of my ayahuasca ceremonies, I decided to study yoga, because I feel like having a daily practice, having a daily reminder, whether it's meditation, yoga, nature, qigong, writing, dancing, whatever, it can be anything. But having this daily reminder, daily practice, integrating, taking this peak experience and all this insight and bringing it back to earth.
yeah,
That's why when you ask me to come and talk about it, and if I feel comfortable, then if it was a few years ago, I wouldn't feel comfortable. But nowadays, knowing what I know, I definitely feel comfortable talking about it, because every person I ever met who told me, oh, it's bad, it's dangerous, it was always misinformation. It was
right,
always not knowing enough about the subject,
right,
being brainwashed, because the second you start speaking with somebody about the history, about the evidence that they're piled up nowadays, about all the benefits of it to all kinds of also conditions, and also to healthy, quite balanced people, you can say. We're all a bit
Yeah, but that's
unbalanced.
gonna take more time until the law will allow that.
Yeah,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
but
But
it's
it's a
gonna happen
process.
eventually. Yeah,
Yeah, like what
yeah,
happened to weed or
yeah.
to many other
It's a bit
things.
tricky to watch it. Like now, what's happening now is that a lot of people are offering underground treatment, or they call it like accompanying trip, like the trip sitting thing. Some people actually offer it as a service nowadays. But the thing is, because it's not legal, there is no. It's like a black market basically, of people that help people to go through like psychedelic processes, and that's a bit frustrating because you say, okay, it's going forward so fast, but then like we are as we go, it's just a bit. It's just dragging, it's lagging a bit behind. It's like if we're gonna do it, like so much more people know about it, so much more people want to use it, so much more people want to help other people with it, but it takes so long, at least for in our perspective, until it
Mm-hmm.
becomes very organized
Yeah.
and all of that. So at the meantime, some people are doing amazing work in the underground, and then some people are making damage in the underground, because anyone basically can be like a psychedelic
Yeah.
healer nowadays.
But each thing has its pros and cons. I feel the second it will be really organized, there will be much more motivation for the law to not allow any kind of alternative. And yeah, some of this alternative is better, some is worse, but you can say the same about clinical. It's not like I trust all clinical
Right.
stuff that
Yeah.
is done about it. Yeah, and there will always be, you can say, alternative things, illegal things. Like
Yeah.
it's such a ridiculous thing, the war on drugs. Like it's the
Yeah, for
biggest
sure.
failure
Yeah, yeah.
that's, it's already said, it's already known, it's a
Yeah,
known
I
fact.
think yeah, even governments that still do it, they already
It's
yeah, and
ridiculous.
nowadays it's pretty clear that it doesn't help. It wastes a lot of money and puts a lot of people in jail that could have like other life, if yeah, etc., etc. Okay, cool. So I think we can end with this with this message about integration. Learn how to use whatever experience you had in life that might have been impactful experience, and try and integrate it into your life, because then you can get much more benefits.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I mean, I'm all for these experiences, but for sure, doing it in a responsible way, set in setting for sure, and learning your own way to bring it to your life so it
Yeah,
won't stay like a faraway dream, kind of like, oh, I had this blissful, amazing, mystical experience, but then I'm living my life and it's horrible and it's boring and it's heavy and I don't know
yeah,
how to take this and bring it down
yeah.
to
It could be
reality.
quite frustrating also
Yeah,
sometimes.
for sure, for
So yeah,
sure.
integration, and then yeah, hopefully maybe governments would understand they also need to do some more integrating and not just like resisting or so,
Well,
or
governments are a
yeah.
whole
No,
other
about the
topic.
war
Yeah,
on
that's
drugs. No, I'm saying maybe one day,
yeah.
yeah, the war of drugs is gonna be more something of an integration
Yeah.
force,
Also, this
hopefully.
word drugs is always like,
Yeah,
I hear it and I feel this contraction inside of me.
yeah,
It's such a general, silly word for, you know, yeah, many things
but it's just a word. Like I don't resist it, but yeah, it's not doesn't necessarily
represent.
yeah, doesn't necessarily present how people feel about this stuff. All right, it was fucking
Yes.
awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you. Nice talking to you.
Wow, it was great. Good
Yeah.
job. Great first guest. Thanks a lot, Raya.
Yeah.
And may we all have a fun, meaningful. The other camera went. Experience. Ciao.